All right, we got the Pegasus World Cup. It's been a while since I've done a video, but I'm here with John Doyle, both of us from Optics EQ. Hey, John.
Hey, Emily, how's it going?
Good. So we're going to go through this race. Now, we had some technical difficulties, but I think we're ready here. So I've got the screen pulled up. We'll kind of go right into it. And I wanted to kind of start with filtering Grade 1 races. So when you have the grid, here open and you go right above race class and you just type in G1 enter, and that'll sort out all the Grade 1 races. So John, why do we want to kind of start there?
Yeah, I think it's important because Grade 1 races are different. Group 1 or whatever you want to call it, it's a world class kind of race, and it takes a horse that's been able to compete at that level to win these type of races. I've found in my career, some of these other classes horses can kind of move in and out of, but Grade 1 is special, and so I just want to kind of get rid of horses that I don't think can compete at Grade 1 levels. And so when we do the filter, I think it'll be obvious which horses are going to fall out quickly, and then so we can at least focus on some of the other horses that are the main contenders.
So why don't we even do one more filter and filter on a B ONG, which is the optics grade, because a B is competitive. Do you want to try that?
That's a good idea.
Okay. So again, go above the ONG, hit B, and then you can see that kind of already started to filter some horses out. So we're left with number 2 West Coast, 3 Stellar Wind, 4 Sharp Azteca, 5 Collected, 6 Gunnevara. War Story's in there, but he's a B-. I probably just should have done kind of a straight B, but anyways, good to see. Toast New York, Gun Runner, Seeking the Soul, and then kind of the same thing for 13 and 14. They probably won't draw in. We kind of like them in other spots anyways, but also B-. So sort of, kind of a quicker handicapping way, sort of filter out some of the noise. Again, this just sort of makes it more efficient overall.
Right. And then we can look at the form of the horses. We can go back and kind of just look at the form. But again, it's an easy elimination kind of thing. So in this case, again, I would eliminate the 1, the 7, and even the 8. Right off the bat.
Yeah.
And, okay.
So should we start kind of with our main contenders here?
Sure. Let's start. Yeah, I guess, with the 2 West Coast.
Yeah, we'll start there. Kind of refilter this out, clear the grid, and actually, I'm gonna hop over to the plot real quick, just because I wanna show something on here on the plot. Is you've got sort of your main contenders are around here in quadrant 1, right? You've got 10 Gun Runner, 2 West Coast, 5 Collected, and then you still have Sharp Azteca, even though it's a little bit lower. But there's really not a whole lot of difference in 10 to 5. John, do you kind of see it that same way?
Yeah.
Like they're all really similar types, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, just kind of separating them is why we're going to kind of go running lines here. So, all right. So coming back to the grid, we've got West Coast pulled up. You want to go ahead and talk through them?
Yeah, I mean, look, he just won the 3-year-old championship last night, right? So there's not much to knock here on this horse. First or second, and he was third against this level. It was his first time going against this kind of quality of horses, in the British Cup Classic. That was at 10 furlongs. He maybe better suited for 9 furlongs. I mean,
I agree with that completely.
He gets a lot of perfect and lone, but I mean, sometimes a good horse makes his trip. You'll see the same thing with Gun Runner, so he kind of, makes his trip good and perfect all the time. He looks a little bit light maybe on numbers, but don't concern yourself with that because he's a 3-year-old and he ran a 105 optics fig, which is within the range of today's optic fig range of 104 to 110. So I think numbers-wise, I wouldn't be concerned about him getting in the fig range. He's a 3-year-old. He continues to improve. He got a little bit tested for class last time, and I think he passed in that race. That was kind of a race that I thought was, from a pace perspective, favored, Gun Runner. So I think this horse is an obvious contender. And 8 to 1 in morning line is, especially with those connections, you got to consider him a horse you really want to kind of consider based on what he's going to be eventually. But if he's anywhere near that, he's a great key in the race. Like
he seems a little wise guy-ish, and maybe even more so now that he is the champion 3-year-old. So that will kind of sort of play into it. But touching on some things that you were talking about, I agree on the distance. And I also think, he went into the Breeders' Cup Classic. You can look at his grid that I have pulled up here. He really just kind of had a campaign straight through the year, right? Starting in February, there's no real layoff lines. He had good spacing between races, about a month, 35, 42 days sometimes. So he was coming into the Breeders' Cup Classic where, again, he ran a good race, but off kind of a big campaign. So I think that this is a good spot, a good freshening. I saw his last work, and I think he looked good. And then sort of referencing the plot again, and as far as what you were saying with the younger horses, and with him being a circle versus square, I think because those other horses are more mature, they're going to look like they have that kind of more clothes because that's what they've proven, and he's capable to be that. Don't you agree, or do you see a lot of difference between a super small circle and then a super small square?
No, not at all. And what I like about him is he's a little bit more adaptable than maybe some of the others in here. Like in terms of a run style, he's not the kind of need the lead horse. He can kind of sit. It's going to be interesting to see him breaking inside the other horses, how things unfold. But I think from a run style, still he's got some choices on how he wants to run. So I think that makes him actually attractive too. Because I don't think he's kind of a one-dimensional presser. So I think he can kind of sit and do different things. It doesn't have to be forwardly pressed. So I like his plot. There's no knocks. Let's put it that way. There's no knocks. Like you said, when comparing
I think when people, they see the plot, and those are things that you just, as a handicapper, have to kind of put into consideration. It's not always given for you, so it can be a little tricky read, and is kind of more of a nuanced plot factor. But just as you start learning the product and improving your game, it's something to consider. And then as far as the trip goes, I think it helps having Castellano back aboard, who rides Gulfstream frequently and knows the track a little bit. Let's we'll just kind of go numerically. As far as Sharp Azteca, obviously the big question is distance, and that's kind of what it is for me. How do you feel on Sharp Azteca?
The same thing, and he's another horse again. You can see some of these good horses get some red marks because they just make their trips. He's had some good trips. I thought he had a perfect trip in the Cigar Mile. Again, hard to knock a Grade 1 horse, especially winning a prestigious race like the Cigar Mile. But I don't know if this is what he wants, and he's going to get pressures from some of the best horses in the world early on. My guess is he's going to the front. And so, it's just, he's not going to be able to kind of get an easy lead. There's going to be pressure, and then that extra furlong is a big thing. So, I just would watch the track that day, just see how speed's playing. It could upgrade him if it's real holding. Look, I don't know if Castellano had a choice here or what, because he was on this horse last time, and he went to the inside horse. So that's just another consideration. I mean, he doesn't get a downgrade when move to Ortiz, but just something to consider. But yeah, I just and again with his price being even less than West Coast, I just prefer that one. But anyone who's looking at this horse, I can't knock too much.
Sure. Okay, so we'll go to collected, the stablemate of number 2 West Coast, and I kind of there hasn't really been that much buzz, just like the Twitter of the handicappers about this horse, but you would think, just kind of coming off that second place in the Breeders' Cup Classic, that he would be the second choice, but maybe people are kind of sort of off his train a little bit. And I definitely fall into that group. I kind of wrote it up in the Hannah report. I just haven't really seen him kind of get back to where he was, where I thought in the summer and the spring. And, we always talk about this, those kind of excessive layoff lines. And I don't know, I'm just kind of lukewarm. Where do you feel on Collected?
He's a definitely contender. I agree. If you look at the extended comment for the Breeders' Cup class for San Antonio, I don't know what they were doing with this horse and where they had him. In terms of the pace scenario, he was broke sharp, but he was like way off in opening quarter. And that's not kind of like his best run style. So I expect him closer. So I think he's going to be a factor from a pace perspective. I think Mike will get him into the race much sooner, be my guess. So, these are the kind of horses that if you kind of just forget about, you're going to be afraid. You're just another Baffert horse that you just kind of like ignore, and he kind of just gets up there and wins this thing. So he's a contender. I just wouldn't go to sleep on him. I understand, some of the concerns, but I just wouldn't go to sleep on a horse like this. He could obviously run fast enough to win this. So, just see if he gets ignored and he floats in terms of price. You just might want to make sure that, especially if you're playing like this is going to be the last leg of whatever picks you're playing. If you're playing horizontally, you got to kind of use him.
Yeah. I saw his most recent work, and he was, he broke behind a workmate and ran that one down. I don't know if that's a tactic they're planning on using, but I just, I've watched his workouts, and he's a horse that, he's just always kind of looked the way that I like to see a horse. Everybody kind of has their own preference. And then when I've seen him in the last couple, especially going into the San Antonio, I'm like, there's something just that isn't the same. Visually, it's hard. It's like we talk about with grit, it when you see it. It was just kind of one of those, I know it when I see it, of, just kind of, and I felt the same way watching his last work off that, where he kind of stalked the workmate. But I 100% agree with you. If he gets forgotten and he's anywhere, above that 8-1 morning line, it's value because this horse could absolutely win. All right, so let's go to the definite favorite here. Probably no question about it. Number 10, Gun Runner. You wanna start with him?
I mean, hey, what could you say, right? I mean, he's just a model of consistency. My concern, obvious is going to be the post position. He's got speed and drawn inside of him. That's not an easy post. I know they talk about a lot, but just it's not an ideal situation, not an ideal post for him. But he's overcome a lot, and he's just been, like I said, a model of consistency. See all that red there? He's gotten good trips, but again, another great horse that makes his trips. I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's a kind of a feel thing. I just think that he might be a bit vulnerable because he's got good horses drawn inside. The addition of Sharp Aztec, kind of increases the pace pressure. He hasn't been facing that kind of horse in these races, right? A quality grade 1 horse that could with speed. So. I don't know. I'd be taking a shot against, at 4-5. I'm taking a shot against him. He's obviously his numbers are much better than everybody else, but people get number crazy, and doesn't need much to go wrong in these kind of races. And then you get the Gulfstream. These horses. I don't know where he's been stationed. I don't know if he has a winter coat and he comes into a warm Gulfstream that day and it happens to be humid or something too. Watch the weather. Watch how he looks on the track, because you never know. Sometimes, it could be the unfolding of some of these horses. They get to a warm weather place, and they have been, I don't know where he's been training and how he looks.
He's been at Gulfstream for a little while. He was schooling yesterday in the paddock, and I think it was either the first or second race. So he seems, as far as coat condition, no real change from what he normally is. Nothing that I could really tell anything significant. He looked very professional. He's done this a bunch of times out there, but I know he has been at Gulfstream for a little while. But one thing let's talk about, because he does have that hard keyword coming off that last race. How does that affect your analysis, knowing that he's now coming into this race off 84 days? Does that kind of negate it for you?
Yeah, a little bit, yes. I think the rest helps. But, look, he's starting up a new form cycle, right? I mean, if you looked at it when he started, kind of in June, when he started his form cycle, when he came back from Dubai, he kind of, that was 117 days. He ran a bang-up race. He won the, Stephen Foster ran a huge race, but he got an easy lead. So, the only thing is, if you look, he's got long, perfect. He has benefited from the trips. Again, he makes his trips, but now it's post 10, speed's drawn inside him. I'm taking a shot. I'm taking a shot against him. It may be silly, but I'm going to take a shot against him. 4 to 5, there's absolutely no value here, and
and I kind of go back to when we look at the plot, and he's not much different than the other two horses. He's got a couple of those races on the Optics Figs that are that are above, right, the 110, the 112, 107 even. So he's got that kind of edge, but he's still a B+ in a Grade 1. And which is similar for a lot of these horses, for Collected, West Coast, even at a shorter distance, Sharp as Tekka. So there's really not a lot of separation, right, on those horses. So it just kind of comes down to value. Let's talk about some of these other horses. I know it's probably...
Quickly, one thing I just want to add on Gunrunner, I don't know what the weather forecast is, but if that track ever comes up wet, then he's a major play against. I mean, he just hasn't, 2 races on wet tracks have been terrible. So it's just worth noting if the weather changes or there's some kind of storm comes in or whatever. I mean, just look at his 2 races on wet tracks, they were just, his worst races.
Super good point. All right. Well, let's give Stellar Wind her respect, likely making the last race of her career, and assume that they're probably just taking a shot. Like, why not? Where are you kind of with her? I know she was kind of one of those on the plot, not that great. Any upside, downside with her?
Yeah, I don't like her. We didn't like her. We discussed this race going into the Breeders' Cup, her race and this staff, and we didn't like her going into that race. A lot of people were high on her, but we thought she was off form. Mm-hmm. And she peaked as a 4-year-old as far as I'm concerned, and last year she's kind of, regressed, and this is just, she's just in over her head, in my opinion. She's a great horse. I love to see it. I love to see the sportsmanship in entering her, but I'm not betting her.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this as well going into the Breeders' Cup Distaff, where kind of questioned the 9 furlongs altogether, being maybe not her best. Sort of that 8.5 is sort of her sweet spot, even at a mile.
Yeah, do you just filter on 9 furlongs for us so you can show people how
sure.
that pops out?
Yeah, so again, just above distance 9F, and then it'll filter out. That's kind of what she looks like. Breeders' Cup Distaff, a couple years ago. Even that race would be below, right? 101 would still not be within range. And as John pointed out, she hasn't really moved forward from that. So it's hard to project that, she'd be able to kind of hit that race and then some.
Yeah.
Let's see where we'll go next.
We talk about Coast of New York because I think this horse is this has got a real shot. This horse is off of whatever 3-year layoff last time. It ran in England, and it was a prep, no doubt. I watched the race, made easy lead, and then kind of took back and kind of stalked the pace and. Didn't win all impressively, and it was only a 4-horse field, but I thought it was a useful prep. And the horse looked healthy, physically looked healthy on the track that day. If you go back, this horse is a Grade 1 contender. Ran a really good second in the Pacific Classic, really good second in the Breeders' Cup, with the best in the world at that time. Beat Shared Belief in the Breeders' Cup Classic, right? Beat California Chrome. This horse is really competing at the highest level before it had tendon issue, right? But, the connections for them to ship here, I think, is a good sign because they were considering the Dubai World Cup. And what happened was, they were going to prep a couple more races in England before going to Dubai. And the fact that they're coming right here shows me confidence, right? Because I don't know if you ship here and then you ship to Dubai, maybe. But I think this shows me confidence that, the horse is doing well. And, it's just, like I said, I mean, this horse can be competitive. And you look at the plot's a little deceiving because it's such a layoff and, some of the races we might be using. But this horse is capable of being up close and not, or, just off. So he's got a very versatile run style, could do a lot. And if he's right, he's a contender to win this race, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the Grade 1 races and the grades. I mean, he's got 2 B+ in Grade 1 events without any red keywords, which is kind of a separator there. And he's going to be a big price and definitely a horse that is kind of a wild card, but worth a shot. Yeah, a lot of things in his favor. I guess another horse that's a little bit sneaky in here, we kind of talked about this some, is Seeking the Soul.
Right.
And this is a horse, you go back, all the way back to the beginning of his career, first start, which really isn't that long ago, right? He's a very lightly raced 5-year-old, all things considered, and he always showed talent, right? Against the bias, against the flow, had trouble, 2 moves, improved. And that was in the Belmont, right? They kind of just sort of ran him pretty soon and hadn't developed.
He breaks his maiden and then they put him in the Belmont.
Right. And 13 days later, so not even 2 weeks, and it was just kind of an ambitious spot, and then he sort of regrouped and then to start, his 4-year-old campaign, he just seemed like he just was getting better. Like he was just improving and kind of starting to put it all together. You look at the optics figures, 92, 91, 96, 107, 106. It's a horse that just is like, he had that raw ability to start his career, put it all together. He's got a B in a Grade 1, so not quite the B+ as others, but a big price. And another horse that's, he's kind of got a versatile running style in the sense that he's not necessarily a deep closer. He can kind of stalk from mid-pack, and then is capable to run against the flow and to close, and he's got that burst in there, so he can make moves. He's a long shot. He's not one that you're like, oh, this horse is a main contender, but he's with a shot.
Yeah, no, I like him. He's a great underneath horse here. He's a great horse to fill out the try. I know some people, me included, I could key a whole ticket around putting this horse in 3rd and 4th, right? Mm-hmm. And, if he's anywhere near that 25-1 or something, you could really, make a gun runner or make a West Coast or some of these other horses value by using this horse in the tries and supers, kind of singling them in that hole. And Stewart is great at kind of horses overrunning, right? Their odds, Dallas Stewart. His horses seem to always kind of clunk up at a big price in like a lot of these 3-year-old races, in big races, right? So, yeah, I agree. I wouldn't go to sleep. The fact that he's a Grade 1 winner, right? Again, from a class perspective, he's there. And especially if he really heats up on the front end, maybe picking some horses up late, like you said. So, I think he's a great horse to use in your exotics and at a great price. And Johnny V, again, like you said about Castellano, is stationed at Gulfstream, so he knows the track, he knows what he needs to do, and so yeah, I'm positive on him too. And I think he's another horse that, like at 9 furlongs, you see his record, he's kind of in the money, or he's first or third, and lots of thirds and stuff. At 9 furlongs seems like a perfect distance.
Yeah, absolutely. A real sneaky horse, and when you talk about key, I think a lot of people will kind of go that same approach with Guanavara, kind of being their underneath key. So this could be kind of the sneaky one to have value if everybody's sort of using a different horse as underneath key, whether it's Guanavara or War Story, something like that. I guess since I mentioned him, I'll pull up Guanavara, because maybe people do think that this is kind of the horse that if it does heat up top,
Sure.
He's the one. And, I've kind of not given this horse as much credit as I should. And maybe I'm doing it again, but I sort of feel like maybe the underneath is the ceiling for him, and that might even be I don't know, kind of a
Yeah.
reach. He wouldn't be my key underneath. That's
No,
for sure.
no, wouldn't be mine either. I would like this horse actually at 10 furlongs better than at 9. Yeah, he's a deep closer. Like what you said with some of the others, they have more of a versatile run style. This guy doesn't, right? This guy is just going to, make one run, and it's going to be plotty. And we talk about horses like this in grade ones. They're just so vulnerable. Like I said, I prefer the 11 over the 6. I think it was the 11 was that horse over this horse in that scenario. So yeah, I think he'll be undervalued versus that one in the underneath slots.
Okay. Let me just kind of go through. I think we were able to touch on all the horses in here. Anything I left out or any other?
No, I think that's right. I think look. I mean, Gunrunner is the horse to beat, but we think he's a little bit vulnerable. The Baffords have a chance at maybe doing something in here, and don't go to sleep on Toasted New York. And we think Seeking the Soul is probably a good horse to look for underneath in this kind of race. I think that's kind of the way we assess to summarize it.
Yeah, agree. All right, cool. Well, I know you did the video for the Fred Hooper, so that'll be up. And we'll post this up on YouTube, both the videos, send out links on Twitter. Of course, welcome any questions. Thank you guys that have been supporting Optics. And the new week package, 7 days for $50 is an awesome value. It's a great way to try out the product. It also dropped the monthly down to $150. So, we're always thinking of the horse player first, adding Optics constantly. All right, you guys, good luck this weekend. John, good luck to you too.
Thank you. You too, Emily.
All right.